Hello, men, and welcome to Messages for Men. This is a podcast for men and about men, and I am honored today to have Tom Gehrman with me. Tom, thank you for being here.
I'm happy to be here.
I appreciate that. As you know, Tom, I spent 5 weeks in Mexico, and one of the things I kind of uncovered and kind of researched was a little bit about mushrooms, the magic mushrooms, and fairly interesting in Mexico because they have a long history of the indigenous people who use peyote and a lot of psilocybin in terms of what came out of that in terms of their architecture. Some of the architecture they use was fascinating because I think of psilocybin. I can't help but wonder some of the pyramids were created because of what they envisioned, what they saw in terms of how they were put things together as well.
I see that.
Yeah, so we had a discussion about this, and I kind of thought it was fascinating. I know you've taken a psilocybin journey, let's say, which was a good one for you, and I want to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
I think we first started out by just discussing, first of all, psilocybin, in my view, and I think in Tom's view both, it really is a drug, and it should be used that way. Even though historically our ancestors have used it for many, many years, I think in the 60s and 70s we kind of ostracized it and in terms of this is a really bad thing when you look at psychedelics and LSD.
Yeah, and I think we'll get there because I'll give you my idea of it. So me sitting here today, never in the world, never in my dreams would I be here talking about this, ever. With the stigma, just growing up that's not for me. I'm fine with those people that do that, but that's not me. I'm driven. I know what I want to do. Anything that would be mind altering. And it's funny how we put alcohol in a different perspective.
We both
drugs,
sure.
Those were for those burnout people. That
the
was for
druggies.
that, and knowing internally, like how I'd say maybe judged people that did that, and I'd say just being, more on that straight and narrow conservative path.
Well, I think we did because, we kind of thought of those people as druggies. We used LSDs in the 60s and 70s. It's kind of just copying out of society and wanting their own trip to take. And we also looked at mind altering in the way that it maybe changed those people and they turned into habitual druggies.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the Reagan, say no to drugs, the crackdown on drugs and what was going on. And, the egg in the pan and it fries your brain. And those things left big marks. And I think it's really important that they did leave big marks. All these things can be very dangerous. So I'm going to be very biased on my side is from the experience I had, this is not something recreational. I couldn't even imagine it recreational. This is something that, and I hate to say drug, and I hate to say medicine because we put it in, allopathic models. This is a medicine, and this is to really help you, and it's not there to be abused. And I think we'll go into the work that it went into there, how I found it, and how long it took to really get there.
And to convince yourself that it was a useful drug, right?
Yeah, the biases were very deep.
Sure.
Very deep.
Especially for, I think, guys like you and I are a little bit the same. I think control is a big issue with us, and anything that's going to, let's say, alter our psyche, even momentarily, is kind of, it's kind of scary.
No, it's that we want to be on. We want to be able to respond to what's around us and fears, whether they're real or not, to be able to respond to those threats, and to lose that kind of control is scary, or maybe we perceive that as weak.
Oh, sure.
Whereas now I'm on the other side, that maybe that's weak to always be on guard and, to put emotions aside.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, I'm sure people are curious in terms of how do psychotropics work? We look at magic mushrooms, and psilocybin is the active ingredient that we really that looks at, that is the main component in terms of mechanism of action of what it does for us. I think in some of the research, I talked a little bit about this, it works in the same pathway really as serotonin does, the 5-HT2A pathway. Was I think a little bit unique, and I think people need to understand, well, why isn't it the same as an SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor like Zoloft, Prozac, or Lexapro? Why doesn't it do the same thing? Why isn't it the same thing? Well, because of the way, just people know, because of the way it binds with different receptor sites, the 2A receptor sites, it's very specific and very focused in terms of the receptor sites it does focus on. The SSRIs will have a kind of a carpet bombing approach to the mind and brain in terms of how it affects serotonin, with numerous receptor sites within serotonin that it hits on. And that's why what's interesting, I think, about psilocybin in the research is that it only hits typically on the 2A receptors, which primarily are focused in the prefrontal cortex and how it affects. So that's why you get hallucinations when you look at visual cortex or audio cortex. When you look at the prefrontal cortex with memory and how we think, process, short-term memory, and some emotion. This is why it's focused primarily there. That's why you don't have an extreme number of side effects associated with psilocybin as you do many of the SSRIs, for example. But once again, I think it's been found to be a very effective drug, especially in treating depression, anxiety, OCD, some types of, when you have alcoholism, if you have smoking cessation, things like that, where, compulsion is a disorder.
Are you talking about psilocybin now? Or are you talking about that? Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about psilocybin.
Okay, yeah.
I think it does. It has a lot of benefits associated with, we don't really see even with SSRIs. So.
No, and I think that SSRIs work very well. So I'm not here to put those down. They work very well for some people, but as we know, some of the side effects, and you were a drug rep with that, is some of the side effects are the same thing that you're taking it for. Higher depression, and and you look at the percentages, and that's why I go to choice in this is, you really look at, and how my brain works is I'm looking at risk profile. What's the risk to benefit?
Sure.
And what's the success rate of these things, and what's the side effect, and is it worth going in that direction?
Yeah, and you've probably done the research on that because you've been through the journey. So why don't we take a moment and just kind of discuss, why did you decide to do this journey? What got you there? And kind of walk us through the entire event and how it happened. I think people are fascinated by this, and they like to know the outcome. And I'd also like to know, because I got to be honest with you, I've known you for several years. I played golf with you several years, and you're still Tom.
Yeah.
I see something different in you that I've not seen before.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
That's very fair. It's the same Tom.
Yeah.
Identical. It's just
you're the same guy. I just still the same guy could be on the golf course.
Yeah. I'm just more aware, I'm more gracious. And we'll get to that.
Yeah, please do.
Because I think that's what everybody needs to know is it didn't change my mind. That's the last thing I wanted, was like a lobotomy or something like that. I knew who I was, or believed who I knew I was at the core. And that's how I knew that something was wrong. Yeah. So my why of getting into it has not changed. What I perceived, what was the cause, that changed later on. But the cause was, I had a trauma, which was a car accident in 2013, that eventually had fractured my neck, eventually had a neck fusion, had a hip replacement. So, those things had a mild traumatic brain injury, have a different sense, having worked with people with that, having a different sense. Treating it and then also finally having it, you have a deep understanding of, oh my gosh, this is different. You're parking your car and you go out and they're like, Doc, your car's parked slanted. You're like, and you're like, this is real stuff. And you're struggling through that. And, over time, and that eventually I couldn't do my career anymore, so I had to.
Just so everybody knows, you're a chiropractor.
Yeah, I was a chiropractor for a year, still am.
Yep.
But had to leave that profession because I had numbness in my hand. I couldn't feel my hand anymore. I had constant pain, but I was really good at putting up a mask. It was important to me that nobody saw that side. Like, so if you saw me, my family would know. But I'd always act, I'm happy. I was happy all the time, showed that I was happy, but that was really getting exhausting. And what was a passion to get up every day, where the grass was green every day, and I was excited to see people, excited to get involved with the day, just started becoming difficult, gradually, hard to get through the day.
I'm assuming you tried antidepressants, SSRIs along the way?
For me, for a very short period of time, because it made me feel worse. And that also went to the control factor. So I'm not saying it doesn't work for other people. It was that control side I didn't like. It was making me not feel. And I didn't.
So I think it kind of numbed you out, where you wasn't high, but you weren't low, but you're kind of in this constant steady state.
But I'm also the guy that looks at the side effects and I'll get them, right? Just because it's there. I knew my why the whole time is I wanted to be. Everything I had in my life was perfect. I have the greatest wife. I have 2 fantastic kids. Like, there's no reason why I shouldn't be happy. Those are the real things in life. It's not cars, it's not houses. Those are the real things, and you're old enough to realize I've got it. And to not be able to be present and really enjoy those things, and them to get all of that was really bothering me. I think my ego and defense mechanisms, and ego, not ego doesn't mean egotistical, right? Ego is that part of the brain.
The ego and the super ego, right?
Yeah, it's part of that brain that comes from all our past experiences together, how we perceive the world. And that's what gives us our biases, how I see something, and you might be looking at the same thing, but you look at that differently. It goes to cognitive behavioral therapy, which is very, very helpful. we have thoughts, right? Good or bad ones. And then if we're not checking those thoughts, they go into what our emotions are, how we feel about something. And then those go into our actions or how we're going to see things. And those can be very dangerous. So like when things are going good, you see everything great. Every thought is good. And then you ever notice when you're feeling good and you're in that part of your life and you don't see the negatives and you just push through all those barriers. And then all of a sudden you get to a point in your life and you see barriers and I can't get over that one. That one's going to be exhausting. It's just changing how you see things.
Okay.
But during that process, I was looking for everything outside of me. Like I'm allergic to something. I need to change my diet. I need to get blood tests. There's something wrong. I have a tumor somewhere. It was everything outside of myself. But it was weird. Every day I was fine. Like, not fine, feeling fine, but physically nothing was changed. I'm like, I'm not dying. All my blood work looks good. There's something else. And that's the hardest thing that I think we all face is dealing with what's in here.
But something must have led you. In other words, if the SSRIs weren't that effective, if talk therapy necessarily wasn't all that effective, EMDR maybe not that effective, CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy wasn't that effective, something had to get you to the point where it's like, these things, these modalities, these therapies are not working for me. I've got to search for something else. What got you there?
Well, my brain wasn't going to let those things work. It was putting up those defenses.
Your ego said,
you want to support your family, all these different things. And I was able to switch to another career and be very successful at that career. And that was, keeping me going, but you get to a point where you burn out. And so to go to what really started doing it is I could see myself withdrawing from things and social things and isolating myself and, spending more time watching TV or procrastinating and the things that gave me joy, like going out and playing golf with friends, which, that's all you wanted to do, at a certain time. And then you're like, I don't want to do these things. And I'm like, that's not me. That's not healthy. And then the frustration comes in is, it's not going to be SSRIs for me. It's not going to be therapy. EMDR was helpful because it was more some visual, and I don't want to, the code EMDR I think could be very, very helpful. I just wasn't in there. I think EMDR would be great for me now.
Okay.
I think I'm in that place where I'm able to let go of the ego biases to just be all like, hey, lay off and let my brain do some work here.
So if you don't mind, Tom, just kind of take us through kind of the journey from the beginning, how it all started. Take us through the stages of the journey, the end of the journey. And I think in particular, people want to know what happened after the journey and how that affected you. And also, I think people are a little concerned, once again, is it going to change me? In other words, am I no longer going to be Tom anymore? Am I going to be some other dude? You can change the mind in many different ways, potentially.
Yeah.
But it's not all therapeutic and is not adaptive enough to make you a better individual and better human being.
Correct.
So maybe talk a little bit about how you think psilocybin and your journey actually helped make you a better person. And maybe talk a little bit about mushrooms, how it's consumed, the setting type of thing, the music, all that went into making this a positive journey instead of a bad trip.
Well, I think the positive journey was all the things you said right there. It's going to change me, all these things. I went into it as it's something I'll never do. So, this journey went on to get to the journey about 2 years. So first seeing an energy healer that gives me this guy's name, and that's a long time ago. And then seeing something on Netflix, how to change your brain, and then I'm seeing the science, and Johns Hopkins was doing studies in the 60s and those were halted. Aaron Rodgers goes and wins 2 MVPs. So now I'm like saying athletes don't do drugs and things like that. And he was doing ayahuasca and, I'm like, oh, maybe I can go to Peru. And I'm like, I didn't like him then. I like him now. I didn't know he was doing these things. And then you get to the science side of mine that my ego's telling me, well, there's no science and this is still going to hurt you and you're going to come out different. And, I always believe that you just lick a mushroom. you're going to, or you touch one, you're going to be, I had all these misconceptions in my head, and I wanted those to protect me. And then what comes around is somebody not related to that first person, this is 2 years later, gives me that same card of that same person. And then, so I finally make the call, call him up and we meet for coffee, and we talk, he gives me his background. And really, I think, what he was doing was kind of sizing me up. Like, are we a match? Because I felt very comfortable with him. I felt comfortable that he was open with me. And there was something about that too, that I'm like, how's he this, I want to be that open. I'm still a little guarded, but my guard came down a little bit. Kind of like if somebody goes and talks to a psychologist, they're like, you know nothing about me, but I don't know you. I'm not embarrassed. I can talk to you, right?
Right.
This is the most critical part of the entire thing. is set and setting. So where's your mindset and where are you at the time when you're making this choice? Like those things have to be set for your brain to be able to go on this journey. And set's not just like, hey, I got my mindset going. I mean, I think it was 5 or 6 sessions with him to really find out my why, where I was going. Why did I want to do this? And that comes back into the journey, how important that was. Had we not done this training with somebody that had been there and him get to know me and how my brain thinks, and how my ego thinks.
So Tom, did you suffer, tell us real quick. I mean, I think it's important to know. Did you suffer from depression?
Not at the time, I wouldn't say that, but it was depression because it was just things, how my mind was going. What is depression? You start to lose passion, motivation. Things become very difficult. I mean, yeah, there's days like where, you listen to people and they're like, what do you mean you can't get up and shower? And you're like, man, showering is just such an effort. And that gets scary. And you feel weak as being somebody that was always, on and moving and going. It hurts. I mean, it hurts.
So what about anxiety? Did you suffer from anxiety?
Yeah, because you have anxiety.
So
you have anxiety.
Why can't I get through this?
Why can't I get better? Why can't I do this? Why do I have all these good things in front of me? And why can I not enjoy them? And then it gets into a thing like, hey, I just need to rest, sleep. And that's where you just start to withdraw. And then you have this mask on with people. So Tom's still there, but you're thinking all the time. And I'm saying your mask is on there with other people.
Sure.
You're just not open to new relationships. Yeah, and that's scary when you start to pull away.
So tell us what you did.
So we did those, 5 to 6 sessions. Yeah. I was comfortable with that. I think I got comfortable because the whole time I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. Or your ego's telling you, yeah, you're never going to go through with this.
Or is this something you can beat again?
Yeah, I knew it was something I could beat. So meaning if I'm doing something, I'm working towards a solution, when the day comes, I'll be healed by then. I'll feel better about things,
Right. Because we talked about, for example, if you saw, for example, a psychiatrist, psychologist, you would tell them what they wanted to hear. You'd play the game.
Yeah.
Your ego would, you fed them exactly what they wanted to hear, but you really weren't getting anywhere.
No, because I loved in school, even though that wasn't my major, I loved psychology. I loved philosophy, and concepts and things like that. So it was like, you're outsmart. I mean, you feel like you're outsmarting them in a way. And it just, my ego was so strong about control that you're not coming into my head to control me. I'll play the game with you, but you're not doing that. And that, like I said, the ego just wouldn't let it in.
And this,
yeah. So, I mean, then it comes to that day. So you're fasting for the day before. So I had breakfast the day before. And then, so you wake up in the morning, I'm not feeling good. I'm like, oh gosh, this is going to be terrible. I'm nauseous. I'm going to go through with it. And this is going to be another one of those things that just didn't work for me. I'm scared, but I know I need a change and I need something drastic that's going to change. I've made my choice. I don't want to live like this. I could do it, but I'm not, there's got to be a better way.
Right.
But I'm like, expectations are low. It's not going to work. I'll get sick. I'm not good at these things. I'll get nauseous. I mean, thinking of hallucinating just makes me want to throw up now. and it's not like that. And he treated it very respectfully. I was able to see, he was important to him that I picked those mushrooms that he weighed to the exact amount. And to go to dosage. So this dosage is, there's microdosing, which is,
and there's the heroic dose.
Yeah, this is a heroic dose, and that scared the heck out of me too. And I remember him saying, "Don't read about it. Don't go Google this." Right? So of course,
what is it? What, 5 to 6 grams?
It's 5 to 6 grams. So
we were just, what microdosing is? What, 100 to 300 milligrams typically?
Yeah.
So you're taking. Think about this. Think about how much you're taking overall. So essentially, you're taking, for example, let's put it in context. If you're doing, let's say, 100 to 300 milligrams, you're taking essentially 5,000 milligrams of psilocybin, which is 5 grams.
Yes, but to go back, I would have never, you couldn't even get me to touch 50 milligrams. I would think that I would lose control. And I probably was still even thinking that going in. I'm just doing this thing. And so you weigh it out, and I'm picking the ones, and the one that they use, I think that's the most common, is called Golden Teacher. Very simple. It's the basic, I guess, the basic one, or the most common one that they're using for this type of therapy. And it goes in a tea, and you drink the tea. So you're laying down. He put a blanket over me that was weighted, which is really important. I still use a weighted blanket, on and off. I'm meditating. Because you're gonna get a feeling of weight. I'm wondering what's gonna happen. I'm like, why do I have this weighted blanket? But I'd never had a weighted blanket. It actually felt good, right?
You're already making me nervous.
And
Tom.
then I'm there when I'm thinking about it, like, and there's parts where I'll probably get emotional with it because I can bring myself back there, which is really, really important. And then a blindfold, which is, I'm not here, like you talk about people doing a recreational use is probably like in that 1 to 3 grams, from my understanding, and that's where the ego's still intact, though. So the whole point of this is dissolution of the ego,
correct?
And the self,
right?
That's protecting you from your thoughts. Like, that being said, I'm neither here or there. I'm not somebody that's going to use this recreational. It's not something that I came out and I'm like, oh my God, I'm addicted to this. Like, I've talked to you before, like sometimes Kelly would be like, hey, it's time for you to take another journey, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, all right, 6 months from now, and then I'll start planning, it'll be another year. So as helpful of an experience and life-changing experience for me, it's not like, hey, let's jump back in there. This has been 1.5 years, and I'm not there, Brad. Wow. Because I'm still working with what I got from that.
I get it. So
this, I'm laying down.
So the reason for the blindfold, just make sure I understand, is that they don't want you to perceive the world around you with open eyes at the time. They want you to they want it to be all basically within your mind and not outside the world, so to speak.
And I think there was a choice, but because I watched How to Change Your Mind, I'm seeing it in this clinical setting. They have blindfolds, and I heard that explanation, so I was biased towards that. He's like, you can do it that way, and I think that was good.
All right,
for me.
Okay. And then music's important, right?
Yeah, and then music. But, like in my head at the beginning, I'm like, this is kind of cheesy. And, I kind of feel like something's starting to hit. Like, I've had lots of surgery. So, like, when they put that needle and you're going to go out and you try to fight it and you can't. This.
Good night.
No, you're not going. You go good night in surgery. You're not going good night on this. So you started creeping up, and I'm like, it's coming. You're starting to lose time, but you're like, okay, this is good. My ego's like, you're going back and forth. You're like, all right, it's tricking me. Like, I'm not getting sick. And then I remember there was a period I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to tell people it's not that bad. Like, I'm okay. Like,
so your ego's still in control.
Oh, the ego's completely in control. It's like, yeah, you're okay. It's starting to trick the ego, but you're in there and it's okay, and there's an anticipation that's good. And then there's, cause you're going someplace. There's an anticipation and then there's an anxiety at the same time. So you're kind of wrestling with that back and forth, and you're starting to go the journey, and it's they talk about like a peak. You're getting to the peak, but it's interesting because it's you are going uphill. You're going somewhere, and your ego's like, don't worry, I'm going to stop you from this.
So are you feeling, as you're going uphill, you're feeling more anxious, more anxiety?
And I'm already like starting to like try to, like in my mind, like, cause I had what I wanted it to do. Like, I had lists of things that I perceived as traumas, thinking I'm going to control this. And I'm starting to catalog these things. I'm still there. I'm seeing it clear. But
which you think from your childhood or even for today, the traumas that affected you, you brought those in.
Yeah, I had a great childhood, but at the same time, there's little things that happen, whether it was something small at school or something here. And a lot of those things I recognized after this, which we'll get to. I see them in a different way, very gentle, and they help me quite a bit because there's a lot of positives that come out of those as well. So you're starting to get to that point, and my brain's in there. You're starting to see things start to peel, and this is like. This is huge where set and setting comes in, because then I'm there and I feel conscious. I remember touching the floor several times, like, I'm still here. Tom, you're still here,
What are you seeing in this time? I mean, what are you visualizing this? What is it causing?
That's where I'm like, this isn't that bad. Like, I'm still in control, but I can enjoy where I'm at. I feel relaxed. You feel a sense of love, just deep feelings, and it's good. But that's not where the next stage goes, so it's kind of gently leading you into this process of where this peak's going to be. So
that's why the music,
it's really weird, because I was, it's like you're at a concert. So you just hear things very different.
Right. I just know because I've read that music is such an integral part of this entire process.
And I'm an AM radio guy, so like it's very different. But how do I enjoy this? You know, like it's going in different levels, and that's why I'd say it's very gentle. Like, so if you compare, like we say in the clinical setting, they're injecting it. It's, from my understanding, it goes like this. You hit the peak and down. So this is what it was really doing was, and when I say medicine, it was forming a trust with me.
The medicine was.
Yeah, I was trusting it. I was trusting it. And that process had to build the trust. So the set and setting built trust in my here part, but how it was gently progressing me that it was okay. Like it's becoming, I don't know, it kind of sounds weird, becoming your friend, somebody I can trust what's happening.
Okay.
You know, you're not here to harm me. I was feeling that you're not here to harm me.
Okay.
That this is going to be okay. You know, and that's probably like an hour and a half process, but it's going fast, where I thought I'd be struggling for 7 hours, and this is just going to
Your process lasted, what, 4 to 5 hours? Your entire experience?
So I got there at 9 in the morning, and Kelly dropped me off, and then Kelly picked me up at 4 in the afternoon.
Okay.
So there's a different, So I mean, statistically, that's like, you know, could be 60 to 90 minutes, the first 60 to 90 minutes, and then the peak. And then the peak is a very difficult period, but I was ready for it. You know, in the past, I had thought that like I was just gonna throw up and I was gonna end up in the hospital, right? So I'm going in with high fear.
Sure.
So I'm surprised, very surprised at this point. So I'm like, oh gosh, this is it. This is.
So how did you know it was
this
the
is
peak?
the time.
When you said, oh gosh, how did you know that? What did you feel?
It was really weird because it was almost like something was going on, celebrating me and everything, all the love of people around you, helping you go to where you're going.
So you started to feel more love than fear, this or not?
I was, and then it was uncomfortable to feel that love. Like, you know, like you like being in a party, but you don't want it to be about you.
Yeah, you kind of get
uncomfortable. So you're getting uncomfortable with it, and I felt something because I wasn't somebody that liked physical touch, and I remember feeling it and trying to get it off me.
Was somebody trying to hold you or touch you, or was it just a feeling?
It was a feeling of love and me rejecting it almost like it was weakness.
Wow.
You know, and it's not a person, it's everything around you. Like, and you want to shake it off. Like, it's not uncomfortable. I remember just writhing away from it. I didn't like the attention. I liked being in the background, observing and enjoying this. When I realized it was about me, I'm like, oh, this is the time. Like, I'm here. This is it, and I need to make a choice. And this is really important because if you haven't gone through training, this is where a possible bad experience can happen, is my understanding. Is that if you resist it, this next stage that's going to last maybe 3 to 4 hours, if you're resisting, this is where that bad trip.
So we're talking about your ego resisting, and there's no dissolution of the ego at this point.
Yeah,
you're still saying, I'm not doing this, I'm not going through this, I'm not letting it take over.
But the gradualness up to it of feeling trust and building trust and being around loved ones in a weird way, that were all encouraging me to go forward, you know. And then that last piece was like, I had a battle with, you know, you're seeing your children, you're seeing, for me, you're seeing your wife, you're seeing everything in 9 dimensions, very vivid, very clear. You're seeing the essence, you're feeling the essence of everything. I'm like, if there's 9 dimensions beyond the 3, I mean, you're there.
So could you see your kids looking at you and your wife staring back at you?
Yeah, in a different way, but in a deeper way.
Loving way or what?
Yeah, like it just we're here for you. We love you so much. We want you to get what you're here for.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I kind of like in a weird way, I remember I tell Kelly, it's like, and we're like, we came to do this, let's go. Like, stop messing around. Like, because you can kind of hang in that one spot. You have to make that decision. People say to die, but it's really to go to the other side. And I remember touching again and being like, all right.
That's what you said to me one time. I remember you said this to me. You said, you're going to have to die and come back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no fucking way. I'm not going to die and come back. But I don't think you really meant it that way. I think you have to let the ego go and go and let the journey take you where it takes you.
Yeah.
And then be able to come back from that. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it was, and then it's the whole point, the whole part of just being, the way you've looked at the world and all that is gone. So imagine seeing everything as a child again. And
that'd be fun.
Where we didn't think, you were always learning something new, and to see, you know, and this is where it's important. Everybody's journey is going to be different. And that's where, like, you watch How to Change the Mind. I can hear these people's experiences, And I'm like, I've been there, and I can understand what they're saying now. But that was kind of painting, like everybody's going to be different, and it's hard to say until you've been there. And what I can say is that period of time, there is no time in that.
So your time and space is not something that's really relevant throughout the journey. You don't really understand or see.
No, and there was times in there where I still remember, like when I had to go to the bathroom, all of a sudden I'm in the middle of this peak, have to go to the bathroom, get up, go to the bathroom, totally fine. I mean, he follows me there and all that, and then boom, back in. Just stops.
Really?
Yeah. And then back in. And then he could tell when I was in an area that I was spending too much time. And he's like, Tom, like, I'm like, I'm good. Like I come back and be like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And he's like, you've been on the same thing for like 2 hours. And like, to me, like time had not changed. Wow. I was examining stuff in there, but without any, can you imagine examining something without judgment, without anything, and just pure love and curiosity, and just no fear of what people think, or feeling silly or shame or guilt or all these things that society is. Can you imagine looking at things that way? Well, you can't, because I couldn't imagine it until I did that.
So what about, like, for example, did you able to see your traumas, your past traumas, and kind of deal and work through those during this time frame? Or is that not how it worked?
I did. And I was able to see things in a very gentle way, like very, like, just loving way. Like, you're forgiven. And I'm not going, for me, I have a lot of faith.
So who's telling you you're forgiven? Was that spiritual thing that you're feeling? Or was that
it's from every sense that you have beyond any sense that you ever knew that you had. And I still remember, and I don't know if this was at the peak or during it. It was like, I remember, like, it was in my mind, there was like the machine, and I was healed. Like all my pain was gone. Like everything was gone. I was free. And I think that kind of happened right there when I went in. It was like, you had to be clean going in, and you're healed, like, given a different body. And you're not going to worry about those things. You're here to do some work.
Wow. So how did you know when it was over?
When the ego starts coming back in.
What do you mean?
So you're becoming more conscious of analyzing and stuff like that with judgment, even though the judgment's a little bit different because you're still under the influence of this medication. So you're gentle up, you're at a peak that's very intense, that you want to prepare for. And then you're gently coming back in, and having somebody there saying, Tom, where are you at? And he had, like strawberries and fruit and all that. I'm like, I don't even like that stuff, Yeah. And I've never tasted a strawberry that tasted that good. It was just all the senses were just really different. The music that was playing was very different. We had discussed different songs that had meant something to me, or songs that upset me. And then he put those on, and I was hearing them in a very, very different way, and with a very, very different meaning. And so we also started to reintegrate what was happening. But he was also gentle to be like, hey, it wasn't like, what'd you see and what happened and what changed? We were just talking about, he's like, how are you feeling right now? And I was able to tell him what I was thinking and what I was experiencing, and I was probably making absolutely no sense, because you're describing something that
you can't, hard to describe.
You can't. And there was just a sense that I still have today that has continued to help me, is that just everything, and that's what you see in these shows, is they can't describe it, but it's going to be all right. Like things are going to be all right.
We're not going to.
And I was mad, like for a little bit, not after that. I'm like, why did I have this bias towards this? Why aren't we using this thing? Like, it was like, I was just, mad
that more people aren't using it or have it available to them? Or
what? Just that I had this stigma, and
you're mad at yourself.
No, mad's not even the right word, because I don't get mad like that. Like I can check myself. It's just, I guess, disappointed that, but also forgiving, because you could sit here and say, hey, I didn't need to suffer like this the past 10 years, but I'm very grateful for it. I can go look back now, especially at like, hey, those last 10 years, those were important. This is what I learned about myself during that time.
So when let's just talk about trauma, for example, not child, but trauma in your life that you did experience. In other words, how does it help you now? How do you process that trauma today?
Now it's interesting, because I want to see trauma, because I want to know more about myself, knowing what I know about the ego and how it frames how we see biases and different things in life. So we can go back in time and catalog on and organize that way. But now I look deeper into what was going on then. How did I feel as a kid? Because some things you want to get back. Like I looked at things like a kid, and why don't I look at it that way? Or when did I stop thinking this way? And it was that event. And okay, that maybe some of those things that I got from that served me, but some things haven't served me well. but being really into like looking at those things, but without pain. And that, I think that's how you continue to progress. And that's why I say I'm not ready to do it again, because I'm still working on the last one.
Okay.
You know, and so one thing I want to be clear is like, you know, we talked about going in is, are you going to be a different person coming out? Are you going to recognize this? Or what if you go do it and like you find out like you don't like your spouse? I mean, you know, I mean, there's worries in there, right? And it's total opposite for me, but you can, the difference was I know where my ego is. I know that ego and how it controls me. So I can look at a thought and be like, is that real or is that not real?
Yeah.
And that thought is not going to control how I feel about something, because once you get to how you feel about it, you can't control the action or your behavior around that.
Right.
But I can look at it and smile and be like, hey, because you have to be gentle with your ego too. You got to be like, hey, thank you for serving me. Thank you for being here. Thank you. I may not be here today if my ego was not here.
Yeah.
You know, it's so many things come out of that.
Right.
But being able to be gentle with the ego too. So you get along with it. And believe me, this is not split personalities. This is just having an understanding. And I can look at things with deeper understanding and gratefulness now, you know?
So it lasted, so you got over it, right?
Yeah.
And then what's really amazing about this can last, the effect that you're feeling now can last potentially for a year or longer, correct?
I mean, there's people that it lasts their whole life.
Yes.
It's not the feeling, it's not the feeling under the influence. Believe me, I came back, there was reality. Yeah. There's still, if anybody's thinking you don't have stress, you don't have anxiety, you're still worried about these things. It's just how you process those different things. Okay. Like the worst thing to come out would be like, yeah, stress, anxiety doesn't bother me. And then where's your motivation? You know, because I mean, those things you're alive if you have stress and motivation.
Do you think psilocybin did, you know, some of the times I think when you look at neuroplasticity, and I grant the science is just, it's really expanding. But sometimes I wonder as we get older, how effective is it? I know with psilocybin, for example, there's been some debate on whether you're actually a neurogenesis, growing new neurons, or whether you're actually through psilocybin either strengthening the pathways or weakening the pathways. Some need to be weakened and some need to be strengthened. And that's what psilocybin does for you, that allows us pathway that needs to be strengthened. So you travel down that path more often than you would another path.
You know, I don't think I would have went down this path if it was something you had to continually do. You know, you know what I mean? You know, for me, I was interested in something that I could look at and try to change. And it was the stories of, especially when you look at, you know, the Netflix series, I think it starts off with like a 74-year-old woman that's dealing with breast cancer. I'm like, she lived, I can live, you know? And you know, and part of it is you got to be careful is like, hey, I don't want to get, you know, like I want the same experience as her, right? That's putting expectations on this. You got to have your own reasons for doing these different things.
So how would you categorize people that you think, in your opinion, based upon your experiences? I mean, I'm not saying psilocybin's for everybody. Who's the ideal candidate for something like this?
You know, I think when you look at trauma in general, I mean, there's huge traumas. There's traumas that you may talk about. I may tell you something, you'd be like, Tom, that's like nothing, right? But how we perceive that trauma is something that I can listen to and it's horrible. That is beyond any trauma I think I could handle. But it's how we perceive it. So I think all trauma to a certain degree is the same. It's how do we I can look at those traumas and look at them very differently, that they're not a part of me. It's not like I've compartmentalized it somewhere to forget about it. I acknowledge those things. I can even safely bring myself back to a trauma to make myself feel what I feel, to understand that I don't want to feel this way. You know, I can make myself feel that way, but you know, and what do they call that? Like exposure therapy sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So I can expose myself to negative thoughts and take myself out of it now and realize that I think it's important. So, I mean, they're always there. I think those traumas are there. It just changes how your chemistry, how you think about those things. Like I'm the same person. It's just, I'm more curious. I'm more grateful. I value things differently.
Yeah. One thing I would notice, and we talked about this on the golf course when you and I were playing the one time, one thing I noticed, and specifically about you, Tom, was you just seem to be more open.
Yeah.
You just seem to be, I don't know how else to say it. You were more cordial, you were more friendly. There was just a sense of warmth of you that I didn't sense before. It was still the same old Tom, you know, the guy that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
But but there was just something different. I think Bruce saw it as well.
Yeah.
We smoked cigars and had some scotch later that night. And Bruce said, man, something's different about Tom.
No, and you bringing that up, it was like, he beat me in the match. So it was a match play and it's golf. And, I'm playing bad, really bad, and I would say old Tom would have just got down. I might have just conceded the match and been like, I wouldn't even know Bruce was there. Right.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, I'm playing bad today. That's fine. But I'm going to be here for 4 hours. And this guy seems like a really interesting, which would never have done. And I really got to know Bruce and enjoyed listening to him.
Right.
And playing with you. And I wasn't really thinking about golf, and it was just, had I not gone through this experience, I wouldn't have had that. I wouldn't have met Bruce. Bruce would not be in my life.
Right. Right.
So it's, my value is, because you're kind of trained, you're going forward and it's like, your goal is to get a car, to get a house, to have a good job, all these things. And they feel good, but they only feel good for so long. They're fleeting. Like we talk about people win Super Bowls and then it's not what they thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And what I've found is like my enjoyment's coming from things that are real and lasting and not being afraid of them, which is, personal relationships, emotional relationships, and being open to those things that I wasn't before, and I'm getting lasting satisfaction from those things, not fleeing satisfaction or, you've done it on dopamine chase and stuff like that.
So you better with your kids?
Yeah. I mean, and that's something you always want to improve.
Sure.
But yeah, I think we talked about, I think my kid, hello to kids, but I think they would tell you, I don't ask about I'm not asking about grades. I mean, but I'm not I'm more about, what are they experiencing while they're there, and that's what's important, not just
Yeah.
I'm really appreciating what they do, proud of them, of the women they've become and how strong they are. And, and part of it is I don't want them to build up what I built up in my head, letting experiences change, taking risks or opportunity that's there and maybe not thinking you're good enough for that. It's trying to put, trying to put things in their mind that's letting them just go for things and be okay with themselves. And it's good to be you, right?
So would you say you're less concerned about the outcomes of things at times, just more concerned about the journey that you're going through? Does that make sense?
No, I think you're always going to be concerned about the outcome, but it's what the value you put on that outcome is going to be. Like if you're playing football and you're an NFL player, your goal is you want to win the Super Bowl, but you want to enjoy that process there and enjoy being in that moment and not stepping outside to be like, am I getting there? Am I getting there?
I talked about how he relates to his players, how he's able to lead his quarterback, how he's able to perform on the gridiron. Now, granted, he wanted to win, but I still believe a great deal of his satisfaction in his documentary was the process of going through what he went through. And if the outcome wasn't what he wanted, he still enjoyed the process.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all look back, when we're young and we're getting started in our careers, it seems really difficult at the time. But then we look back and you're like, hey, sometimes I want the simplicity of that. And that was so much joy working on this and that. But, that's 20 years down the road that you realize that the process was fun. So I could talk to my kids about the process all day. The struggle's what's fun.
Yeah.
Was the struggle fun when we were going through it? I don't know. We look back and we say, hey, that struggle was awesome. And felt alive and all that kind of stuff, right?
So do you still microdose today?
On and off. Do you
find it effective?
Sometimes, but you have to really get your set and setting. And you can't skip steps. They talk about, getting out in nature, going for a hike, those type of things and being around things. You can't, in our society, you have to really be intentional. Why am I taking this day? And it can be very simple. Hey, today I really want to focus my mind on anxiety. I want to be really aware of anxiety and where I'm seeing it in my life, as opposed to I'm just taking this thing and I'm going to feel all right, because you're not. I mean, and that's where I say medicine and how it really needs to be respected, right? When you take an Advil, you don't respect the Advil. You're like, it's just supposed to, it's supposed to take down inflammation. I go play golf today.
Right.
You have to have an intention behind what you're doing if you want to get the result.
What I'm conflicted with on microdosing is some of the studies I looked through is it really was varied response. It was all over the board in terms of its efficacy. Safety wasn't so much of an issue, but the efficacy in terms of how well it worked. I think some of it has to do obviously with how much dosage you used, or milligrams you used. I'm sure the purity of the content of the
what you've eaten or not. That's huge.
Yeah, so I'd love to see science progress in this area where we actually have double-blinded, placebo-controlled studies looking at microdosing and see what it does, especially versus SSRIs, which there's been studies out there that shows it outperforms SSRIs in terms of depression and other elements. But I still think we're in our infancy stages with microdosing as to what it can do for you. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and what I would say is with microdosing with me is I felt like I was in a good place. So meaning setting with that, like you don't want to eat before it and stuff. And it just wasn't fitting into what I was feeling. Okay, I didn't have an intention around doing microdosing. So me talking to it's probably not the best on that because I was in a good place. I felt good. I feel like I was making the progress, and I felt like I was, most importantly, I wasn't getting complacent. I felt like I was still working towards what I wanted and aware of my thoughts and getting, accomplishing. I mean, it's an everyday thing, but you're still accomplishing what you're trying to do on that continual journey. I'm still integrating that all the time. But if I'm in the right mindset, it's a weekend or it's going to snow or something like that, and I can be intentional about putting that time aside, it can be very helpful. My fear is that people just thinking that, medicine's supposed to fix something. This takes work. And I think doing the larger dose, the one that nobody should do unless you're, helps me, help me get there in a more profound way, quicker, that I needed. I needed a big change. I needed to get my head would have been too wrapped around it. But now if I did microdose, I know how to get my head out of it and go there, And I mean, what's funny is, you go to the end of the whole journey and then we went in a cold plunge.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, people talk about it. I don't want to say it in a religious thing. Christianity is very important to me, but a rebirth. I mean, I felt like things were new, like by knowing that everything was going to be okay. Universe is okay. I can just go in here and I'm going to enjoy life. I'm going to enjoy the ups. I'm going to enjoy the downs. I'm going to analyze them. And enjoying the human experience instead of when we talk about the human experience, it's enjoying that and being able to observe it again in a gentle way and just having gratitude. Like if when I'm doing a gratitude journal, it's very different than doing a homework assignment that I was doing gratitude. Like, I'm grateful for this. I'm truly grateful for these things and really blessed. And I'm really blessed that medicine found me over a period of time. And I think the whole process of me resisting for that period of time was fine as well. So I think for everybody else, for everybody out there, it's very different. I mean, you got to be with a professional. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And we also talked about prefrontal cortex is not fully developed till you're 26. This is not something you do. This is not something you do. Your brain has to be fully developed, even though we still have neuroplasticity, which is...
Well, and I also think we should point out that you have a history of psychosis, whether you have bipolar, schizophrenia, even borderline personality disorder. There are many disorders, even if a familial or even if your parents suffer from something like that, psilocybin may not be a good choice for you as well.
Yeah, and my goal is just to help somebody that, is going to do it in a professional way. You got to have somebody there, somebody that's very experienced there. There's studies out there people can get into. Just have respect for it. Because I think there's a lot of dangers if you don't have respect, like anything that you abuse.
But it sounds to me like, from what you're saying to me, is you had a guy who was stuck. Therapy wasn't the answer for him. Drugs necessarily weren't the answer for him. Did some research and did this and found this to be a profound answer for him. Is that correct?
Yeah, it just, even though it was resonating with me, like I said, it took a long time to step in, all the way to the last second before hitting that peak. I wasn't going.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
It wasn't happening to me. And, I'm glad I did it. And like I said, it was profound, and it's helped me.
Tom, I want to thank you for sharing this experience with our listeners.
No, thank you for letting me, share it.
I think it's phenomenal. I think
3 years ago I wouldn't share this, or 3 years ago I wouldn't think that I would be here.
I know that, Tom. I know that about you, but I don't know. I've grown. I love you dearly, and I just
love you too, brother.
I think that it's great that you're able to do this. And the podcast is about helping men that are stuck. And if this is an option for men, this is medicine. This is medicine that can really help men who are struggling. So I appreciate your journey and you talking about it, and it's made a difference in you. I can see it. So
thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Podcast.
Appreciate it. You're up next.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.